it's so worth it. And I'm so glad I started. But yeah, when I met April, I just was like, I'm just going to go through the motions and see what happens. And before I know it, there's thousands of books and plushies in my basement. So it's so worth it.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to have you here. I have a fantastic topic for you today. We're going to talk about Kickstarter and how you can raise money for your book so that you don't have to go into debt to create the amazing children's book or novel that you have that you're working on. So I am very pleased to introduce Sarah Kathryn Frey, who is a member of my team. I think we've been working together for a few years now, who started in the same place that you are right now. And she has released 2 books that were funded on Kickstarter and raised over $40,000. She has helped many an author with their Kickstarter, with A+. She is a designer. She is an amazing author, and I'm just very proud to also call her my friend. So thank you, Sarah, for being here and walking through this with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I am excited to be here and to hopefully give you guys an idea of what Kickstarter is and if it could be right or wrong for you. And hopefully, we can get a lot of the basics and then dive in at a later date even further. But for today, I hope to give you an overview of the platform, why a person might want to do Kickstarter, why they might not want to do Kickstarter, and hopefully give you an idea if it's right for you. Usually after this kind of session, I'll hear from authors who are either really excited and so ready to just start with this Kickstarter process and just like, oh yes, I can't wait. I'm so excited. This is what I want to do. And some people are like, I'm so glad that I was there because it made me realize that I'm just not in that place right now. And there's no right or wrong answer there. It's just all about figuring out what is best for you and your author journey and where you're at right now. So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll have an idea. And also hopefully I'll be able to, if you do decide to go that route, hopefully you'll have some ideas on what you should be doing right now and what you should be planning toward for the future. April did a great job of kind of introducing me and where I've come from, but a bit of background. I started working with April about 3 years ago right now. And at the time I was jumping into an author work group and I really, really wanted to, of course, I think we all have this vision of what we want our books to look like. And that can mean a lot of different things. You visualize the illustrations. Maybe you visualize the size of your book, the quality, are you doing hardcover, paperback? And I had a vision. I really wanted this keepsake style book. I don't know about you, but whenever I started in the work group, it quickly became exciting, but also overwhelming. Like, whoa, how am I going to cover all of this? Like this dream project, it adds up so fast. So I guess I'm going to just have to go the print on demand route. There's no way that I can pour all that money into printing, doing offset printing with these hardcovers as much as I would like to. And April mentioned, well, maybe you could consider Kickstarter. And I was like, okay, thanks for the suggestion. But I really just kind of didn't think that. I was like, no, I'm really not comfortable with that. And I now realize it's because I had a total misconception over what Kickstarter was. So that's where I will start. I want to give an idea of what Kickstarter is. Basically, I thought that Kickstarter was a donation-based platform, like think GoFundMe or something, where you share with your friends, family, whomever. I have this dream of creating a book, and I'm really excited about it. I hope that you will help me. And then people just donate money. And then if they want to buy the book later, they'll have to pay for that also. That's what I thought what Kickstarter was. And I just didn't feel comfortable with that. Then, thankfully, somebody else that I met in April's author work group, she launched a Kickstarter. And whenever I watched her go through the process, I quickly realized how wrong I was about what Kickstarter is. And I immediately on day one of her project just got so excited. And I was like, it was like a total 180. I was like, oh man, this is so amazing. So it's not a donation-based platform. What it is instead is it's a pre-order system. So think like any other kind of pre-order system where you might say, let's say the books will probably be here in July, but first we need this funding to print the books or to fund the books in general. And so people place the pre-orders, and then you can use those funds to produce the book. On Kickstarter, you're funding an item that has not yet been created yet. So what's the difference between that and any other pre-order system? You have to set a predetermined goal that if you don't reach, it's called an all or nothing campaign. If you don't reach that goal, nobody's credit cards are charged and you don't get the funds to print the book. So that is a little bit scary, and that's why it takes a lot of planning. It feels very overwhelming at first, that like all or nothing. I thought with my second campaign that I wasn't going to feel nervous about that, but I don't think there's any way around it. There's always in the back of your mind, what if I don't reach that? What if I don't reach my goal? But thankfully, I'm here to tell you, as scary as it sounds, it is not as scary as it sounds, because there's so much planning you can do to help you. So if that's the case, where should you start? Firstly, I want to share, it is a ton of work running a Kickstarter. That's oftentimes what scares people away from doing it. It's truly a lot of work. That being said, you're going to do a lot of this work anyway as an author, making marketing materials and crafting your why message, like why creating this. It's just, instead of it kind of just being like a spread out marketing, whatever, everything seems more isolated and manageable. Where with Kickstarter, it's a blitz marketing campaign where you have this predetermined goal that you have to reach in a predetermined time. So you have like, let's say 30 days. That is the average length of time for a successful Kickstarter campaign. You have 30 days to just blast it out there, do your very best to bring as many people in. And so that sounds a little bit stressful. Why would you do that to yourself? But what I found is other people have the exact same reaction I did to my author friend who I met in April's group. They see, I'm really excited about this person's project and they need my help to make it happen. So rather than it just kind of being like, oh yeah, maybe I'll order that book at some point and then just never really doing it, they're like, oh, they need me to do this right now. And so they jump in, everybody gets excited, they're cheering you on, they love the team feeling, and there's just a whole psychology behind it. And it's exciting for the creator and the backers. So that is an idea of what it is and what it is not. So with that in mind, where should you begin? I always suggest that you begin in a similar spot that you would whenever you are going to be marketing your book in any way. And that's market research. But the difference is, instead of like looking on like Amazon or whatever, like at competitors, best thing you can do to start is to just go to Kickstarter.com and you can look around at current live projects on Kickstarter that are running and also ones that are already completed. And when you do that, look at it with a set of eyes that what catches your eye. If it's already done, did the project already reach its goal? Did it fail? There's a lot to learn from both the successes and the failures. If it was successful, what catches your eye? What would you want to emulate? And if it failed, try to reverse engineer where they went wrong. Like sometimes it's really obvious that maybe they set their goal for like $40,000 and they just clearly didn't have the audience to do so. Sometimes it's not as obvious and have to kind of reverse engineer things. So what are some of the things to be looking for? So this is my most recent campaign. And you can see like where a person's goal is, how many backers they had. And these over here are called their reward tiers. So the place I would start is going to Kickstarter.com and going to the Kidlit section, which you can find publishing. And then there'll be subgenres down here where you can go to children's books and discover more. And there's always a bunch that are running that you can learn from. This is one that I backed recently that did such a good job. Like, you'll want to watch their videos, look at their graphics, look at their reward tiers, and see what draws you in. If it draws you in, it's drawing other people in as well and whatnot, and try to learn from those. So those are like the basics of like what you can be looking for. But if you're just looking like without the eyes of like researching and doing market research, but just like from a consumer, that is very helpful to look at it just like with as a consumer, what draws you in. But it's also a little bit overwhelming if you just look at it that way. So I thought it might be helpful to tell you a little bit about like the strategy, the techniques that I use whenever I create my campaigns. And it doesn't mean that they're the only correct strategies, but hopefully my sharing how I strategize my own might help you whenever you are doing that market research and planning for yourself. So like I said, what you do with Kickstarter is you will set a predetermined goal. And there are more or less two main tactics that people use whenever they are setting their Kickstarter goal. And this is one of those things that you more likely than not will go back and forth on in your mind, like, because it is nerve-wracking to set this goal and know if I don't reach it, I don't get the funds. So there's two main tactics. One is like this really brave goal where you add up every single expense that you can think of that goes into creating your book. And then you set that as your goal. It's ideal if you reach it, then you don't have to make up the difference, but it's also really scary. And that number can be very, very high. So I personally am not that brave. I definitely did not go that route. I went personally the second route. And I would probably suggest the second route, especially for first time Kickstarters, to kind of feel out the demand and just, I don't know. It's hard to truly recommend because everybody is different. But the other tactic is safer, where you add up the amount that it would cost you, but you also come up with an amount that if you made this much, you could make up the difference yourself if you absolutely needed to. So for me, I set my goal at 7,000 both times, because although I knew that production was going to cost more, I didn't want to risk not like it was still felt risky, but I didn't want to kick myself for setting it too high. And you could think, why set it high in the first place? Because if I have to hit that number, why wouldn't I just set a low goal? And some people do that because they just don't want to worry about it. There are a couple main downfalls to this. One of the bigger ones is that it takes away so much incentive, because if, let's say, you set your goal for $400 whenever you really need 7,000, you'll hit your goal really quick. You won't have to worry about not getting anything, but people see, oh, they already reached their goal. I might get the book later, but they don't feel incentivized to act now because you've already reached your goal. So I don't recommend shooting too low, but at the same time, it's a bit overwhelming to shoot way too high either. And there are methods to kind of bring a little bit of that incentive back, like with something called stretch goals, where let's say like stretch goals that I've used are, yay, we hit our goal. If we reach $9,000, we'll add foil stamping to the cover. And then like if we reach $10,000, we'll donate one book for every $100 raised past our goal or something like that, or every $1,000. I don't remember exactly the numbers that we did, but basically my favorite stretch goals are the ones that add value to the books for the backers who supported you, because that people are going to be excited about that and keep feeding into it. And you also get a nicer book as well. And donations like through in the community that people get excited about that as well. And it's just a really exciting thing to be able to do that. So those are kind of the main goal setting tactics. Like I said, just add up the number you think you would need, and then you can decide between options 1 and 2. Now, in your market research, I also recommend looking at how many backers campaigns had and how much they raised, if it's already complete, or how much they've raised so far. And then dividing that number that they've raised by the amount of backers. That's going to help you. It's not foolproof, but it can help you get an idea of like how much people on average are willing to pay on a children's book in Kickstarter on those projects. Whenever I was designing my first campaign, I found that on average, people were backing at a level of $35. So it's been a little while since I've gone through all the recent projects. Of course, everything's more expensive nowadays. I don't know. But so what I did whenever I was like working on setting goals is that from this first campaign, like or dividing, $19,500 by 321 backers and doing that, but not just on one project, like take just like a sample of a bunch of kidlit projects on Kickstarter and do that math for yourself. And then whenever you're thinking about setting your goal, take that number by and divide your potential goal by that. And then think, okay, do I have the audience to reach that? Hopefully that'll help you with your goal setting to make it a little bit feel less to chance and more like you've actually planned this. It's still nerve-wracking, but it does help a little bit to feel like you have thought this through and you've planned this. So you've done the market research and like that outreach. Start that so early. Like while you're doing everything else, you can be doing the outreach as well. And at the same time, you're going to be wanting to like design your campaign and plan your reward tiers. So one thing that I love about Kickstarter is there's no risk to you creating a campaign or running a campaign. The only thing you have to lose is your time and whatever expenses you might put into like marketing material, like if you send out postcards or hire somebody to do your video, that kind of thing. It's free to create an account. It's free to run a campaign. Like if you're successful, yes, you pay fees. If it's unsuccessful, you pay nothing. And it costs nothing to start a campaign. So I very much recommend, in addition to being on the website, doing the market research in people's campaigns, just if you have any interest in doing this after tonight, like if you feel like, I think that this is an avenue I want to pursue, I highly recommend experimenting with the platform of Kickstarter itself in the dashboard. So on Kickstarter, you can, like I said, for free, just go ahead and start playing with creating a campaign just to kind of get a feel for how things work. And if you decide to do it, that was kind of what I did. I really think this could be right for me, but I don't know for sure if this could be right for me. So I kind of started going through the motions. I just went to Kickstarter.com. I already had an account because I had backed my friend's project. And then like if you sign in, you'll have right here in the right corners where you click to get to like your profile, and just click new, and it'll just bring you to where you can start creating a page, and you can just go through the motions and be working on it. And if it is something that you decide to do, then you're ahead of the game. You've already been working on this. You can play with this. If not, then you didn't. It's not like you spent money on it or anything. So I highly recommend jumping into the dashboard, just seeing what happens like as you go, as you plan. So it'll just kind of like walk you through a bunch of things like So there's like the basics where you name your project and you create like your project image and this big project image. And there's where you can add all of the rewards, your story. And like to create a story, you just get this blank area where you can literally do anything with it. You can type, add images, videos. It's honestly a pretty simple dashboard to work with. It's very user friendly.
And you really just want to be speaking to your target audience. What's important to them? What kind of terminology might they want to use? And having a video that speaks to them, that's the thing that people are mostly going to watch is the video. And so if you need some help, if you have somebody record the video and you need to make it look more professional, we have a couple of great video editors that I can point you to help you with that. Sarah, you did yours yourself, didn't you? You did the editing.
I did do my videos myself. I don't have any know-how on this. So I originally thought I was going to hire somebody. I filmed myself and then so this is based on our real life story. So I filmed myself and my dog, and then I was grabbing I have all these cute clips of Alice Eloise, my dog, and these different situations. I'm going to grab all these clips and prepare this stuff for the video editor. And so I'm just grabbing everything. And I realized when I'm getting ready to send the stuff to her, I'm like, I pretty much have done this myself already. So I just kind of went with it and had fun with it. And I'm glad I did. That being said, you can do fancier things than what I did. And sometimes we just don't have time to figure out how to do one more thing. As authors, we're constantly taking on new jobs that we had no idea we were going to have to do. So if I were going to spend money on one thing during my Kickstarter that I was going to hire out, it would be the video. It's so important. It's usually the first thing people see. That is your opportunity to grab people. And I feel like on Kickstarter, perhaps more than any other platform, grabbing people with your story, your story behind the story, your reasoning for creating this project. Yeah, they're interested in what the book's about, but even more so, they're interested in the person, the reason that you're doing this. More often than not, those are the stories that do best on Kickstarter, are the ones that can really just grab people with the reason, the story behind the story. So really craft that message. What is going to speak to your audience, your niche, whatever that may be, write about it, speak on it in your video. And that's what's going to grab people. So whenever you're designing your campaign, that's what's going to be the most important. And then on top of that, having a really beautiful, eye-catching graphics, that kind of thing. And those are the things whenever you're looking around doing market research, whenever a campaign didn't do well, so often I'll see a campaign that it's just all words and that's it. And I immediately click off of those campaigns. I just do and it makes me sad because sometimes there's stories that very much deserve to be told, but they just didn't really know how the platform worked, didn't know what to do with it whenever it had so much potential. So I do recommend taking the time and creating graphics so it isn't just a block of text. Try to have a nice balance because some people are going to read everything, but a lot of people are just going to scroll it just like this. And so if you're just scrolling this, what do you see? What makes this book special? And it's oh yeah, I am interested. What makes this book special? Let me know. And then having those highlights just big, in an image and then having more information that they can learn.
It's so beautiful. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
So that's how I like to design is, yes, filling it out with all the details, and not all of them because I could go on forever, but so many of the details that make this important to you, that you think it's going to be important to potential backers, but then also highlighting those main points, those main headlines in your images if possible, because so many people are just going to be scrolling and skimming it and trying to get a quick review of what this is and if they're interested. Like I said, I try to pursue media during the campaign, but if there's already been media, it's also helpful, give some social proof of why people might be interested. So, we just share our past media as well. And then in addition to telling your story really well and the graphics, the text, the video, the reward tiers, that is its own beast. I did underestimate, and that's always your hope, that you underestimated and that you could reach more than you thought. Both of my goals, like, see, I set my goal of 7,000. That doesn't mean that's all you can raise. Like, you might reach your goal on first day. I was like overjoyed to reach my goals within like 24 hours or something like that. So it's not, you don't sweat it as much. It was a great feeling, but I had already set the time for like 31 days. So it doesn't mean, oh yeah, we reached the goal, Kickstarter's over. You still run the campaign for that 31 days. And then anything you make over that, you still get. So if I didn't say that, that probably was confusing. I apologize. So you make whatever you can get in that 30 days, you get. But first, you have to hit that original goal. Once you do, like I said, I utilize, and a lot of people utilize stretch goals where like it was like if we reach $8,000 to add foil, 10,000, we donate books, and then extra pages to the book, and then plushie donations, that kind of thing. So for my newest book, of course, we had the bonus that we already have book one. So people have the option. Some people will have like their first reward tier being like a book and like a sticker sheet and a bookmark. And that's great. But honestly, me personally, I would rather just pay for the book, and I don't need like the little extras necessarily. So I always like to have a base tier where it's like just a $10, or people don't have to get a reward if they don't want. They can back $1 just to support or whatever. But I'll have like digital reward where I don't even have to pay shipping, where they just get the ebook and video book. That's for people who are kind of interested in the story and mostly just want to support you in some small way. But then like my real base one is one that just has the book, and then those digital rewards as well, because it costs me no more to give them access to that. So why not? But then on top of that, it is kind of fun whenever possible to have more options for people, special packages that they might not be able to get anywhere else. So we have our first book. So we offer that in certain packages, our coloring book and gratitude journal, our plushies, and that kind of thing. So the way that reward tiers can serve you and your backers best is whenever I spent so much time with a calculator and a spreadsheet planning these. So you'll see here for my one hardcover book, $22. But then if you come here, you can get both of our books for $40. So increased value, rather than it being $44, they're actually saving money, like rather than if later they were just to get 2 books at $22, that kind of thing. And then you can get like here, a book and a plushie for $39. But here you can get 2 books and 2 plushies for $72. And you get a coloring book thrown in. So that coloring book is kind of your bonus there, that you get that as well. And then basically every tier up, you have increased value. So it incentivizes backers to pick a higher pledge. They get more. It's a win-win for both people, rather than just being like 1 book, $22, 2 books, $44. That's a mistake I see on a lot of campaigns, is that they didn't utilize that reward tier strategy. Doesn't mean it won't be successful, but I love using that to strategize and help people out. And like on our first campaign, we did the same basic thing where every tier up, you get more. And like, so this one, every tier over $65 also got like a t-shirt transfer. I had so many people who were like, they just bumped up so they could get that t-shirt transfer for their kids as well. And so that's kind of like the psychology of reward tiers that think it through. That took so much thought for me. Part of it is I'm not a math person, okay? But it also is just trying to make something that makes sense. Another big thing, whenever you're doing that outreach, education on Kickstarter, that's going to take some time as well. Like I said, I myself thought I don't want to do a Kickstarter because I'm not comfortable just asking people for money. So why would I think my potential backers would be any different? Like I might be thinking, I really hope that they succeed. I hope they can make this book. I'd like to buy it someday. Whenever quite literally, I could pre-order it right here on the Kickstarter and help them succeed, rather than, because I would have thought, oh, I could donate $20 now, but then have to pay $20 later for the book. I'm just not in a position to pay that much just for a book. If you have author friends who have run Kickstarters, look around at what they're putting out there on their social media. like leading up to their campaign and during their campaign. And also, if you back a campaign, even if you just back $1, like support it, you get all of the updates where they are keeping their backers updated. You can see how other people are bringing their audience along with them for the journey. Like even with my second campaign, I still got people like, oh, can I just like give you the money? And it's like, honestly, sometimes I'm like, sure, like, especially for older people that just can't figure it out. It's like, no big deal. Like, that's fine. But at the same time, if everybody did it, I wouldn't reach my goal. So it's like, I try to really get the message out there that we're doing this way so that we have the funds to go print the books. So like, go explore what other people post during their campaigns and see how people are doing that and before their campaigns. This wasn't my first post about what Kickstarter is.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's like, what is Kickstarter post, and put it out there like on your socials, in your email list, that kind of thing, and explain what it is. And so like I have like just that image to catch people. And then in the caption, like explain it's a crowdfunding thing, no risk to our backers, but we need to reach this goal to get the funds. And then sending that, putting it on our socials, out to your email list. And when I did that one-on-one outreach to people as well, I kind of told them, we're going to be doing a Kickstarter. This is what that means. This is how you can support us. And that's what like you can see here. It's just an example of like the verbiage that I used to explain to people how this works. They know how it works so that they can support you and feel safe doing it. It's a really, really important part of the puzzle here, is making sure the people that might want to support you know how to do it, because not everybody knows what Kickstarter is. A lot of people think they do, but they don't. That's a big part of the process.
If you wouldn't mind sharing like the spreadsheet you used, and I think we might have some templates that we could use for people in planning out like what they're going to charge for each tier and things like that. So I will grab some of those or I'll point people to the Kickstarter Made Simple Facebook group, which has a lot of that stuff in it that Sarah and I created. You know, we can take a fresh look at maybe what new things were created that we might be able to share as well.
This isn't perfect, but it might help a little bit. This was from my first campaign, I think. Yeah. So Lisa Furland is somebody that we work with a lot for crowdfunding that she has. I don't know if she still has these vaults. You can make this kind of spreadsheet yourself. So whenever you're doing your market research, kind of get ideas of what other people do with their reward tiers, what other types of rewards, to help you think through what you like, what you don't like, and then kind of go from there. So I tried to think through the different reward tiers I wanted to do. So like one hardcover book. So I thought, okay, like $20 for that. It really only cost me like $5.69. So I thought it would to create the book. I think it was actually less, but whenever you're planning this stuff out ahead, you just do your best. And it's always better to have a cushion than underestimate the amount something's going to cost. And then I know shipping was so much less than that. But anyway, so you'll do like, we'll charge for that tier, how much it actually costs you to produce it. So total cost for production. So if I charge 22 retail and subtract the total cost, that got me to like, on this tier, I would be making $12.18. And then you have like profit margin column as well. That's helpful. Like, oh, this is actually my most lucrative tier, and kind of like try to incentivize to that tier more than others, that kind of thing. But the main idea is when you're building that tier ladder, have that strategy of making it a better deal as they go. But yeah, your estimate number of backers, like, so say maybe I'll get 267 backers, and guess how many people you might be able to count on in each tier. That's the hard thing about planning this stuff, is you don't know the feature. You have to guess a little bit. But if you kind of guess your amount of backers there and how much you could make from each tier, and get an idea, and have the platform processing fee. You might want to build in a little extra just because, it can vary for whatever, like, I don't know the reasons why it can vary a little bit. And then it'll like tell you total in your bank account that you would get if
it's a good worksheet to pull together some information. And I think as we're pulling together and doing this like small subgroup we'll be able to advise you based on our experiences. Like if you have no idea how much it's going to cost to ship something, or you need help of like, oh, where do I buy packing, whatever, between myself and Sarah and a couple of others that we've had go through this, we can be there to help you with coming up with some of those numbers. I do plan on working with Sarah and putting together like a small group of people who are all going to be launching. Looks daunting and it can be really stressful, but we do have Phyllis with us. Phyllis, are you still here? How was it for you going through this process? Because it wasn't that long ago when you were doing this.
I was not quite as organized as Sarah. And the process for us, as far as marketing, we did everything on Facebook with family, friends, realtors, and we came down to the wire, but we went over what our goal slightly.
Yeah. Was it as complicated to set everything up as you thought it was going to be? I know you and I did a lot of it together.
Yes, you did the majority of it, and once I got the boys involved to help a little bit, it was not.
The dashboard is like, honestly, for how complicated planning a Kickstarter is, the dashboard itself is not the hard part, like for comparatively. So thankfully, like, of course, like designing things, whether you do it yourself or somebody else, that all takes work and effort. But like the dashboard itself is like, honestly, remarkably user-friendly. So
Phyllis, will you do another Kickstarter?
I would do another Kickstarter now because I'm more comfortable with everything.
Usually what people say is at the end of their Kickstarter, they say, never again. This was so stressful waiting till the end to get it, but then a few months go by and it's like having a baby. It's like, okay, I guess it wasn't so bad.
Right.
And it did get all that money to help with the funding.
It did help, and the offset books are really, really gorgeous. I love them. I love Sarah's blue foil, but I went with gold foil.
Look at that. Oh, I love it.
Like, isn't that just lovely? There's no right or wrong, but like, it just feels so good to have that quality in your hands. Like, and that's like, I had this vision myself. Like,
that's beautiful.
You just like, you can't do it on print on demand. There's nothing like, there's so many great things about print on demand, but if you have this in your heart, like that this is the kind of book that you want to create, like, honestly, if you think you can build the audience, it's so worth all the effort that goes into Kickstarter. I literally could not have done what I do without it. So there is one more thing that I specifically wanted to touch on about rewards that is really important to me. So here, someone can get one book. Here they can buy one, donate one. Here they can get a book and a plushie. But then like here they can get like one of everything. But for example, you go 4 books, then 4 books, 4 plushies, and then 10 items, then 20 items. Like, what if I want 15 items, right? Like, you can't anticipate what everybody's going to want. And so that tripped me up a little bit. And with my first campaign, Kickstarter didn't have add-on items yet. Add-on items are like an a la carte option where people pick their base tier. Like maybe they have 2 kids, but then they wanted to get a book and a plushie for a cousin as well. So maybe they get this 2 book, 2 plushie. With my first campaign, I had to just like have people be like, okay, if you want an extra book, add $15 to your pledge. And then you can tell us that's what you wanted whenever you do your backer survey at the end. Okay, here, where like I would have prices for how much like people could add things to their orders. And now Kickstarter actually has a functionality where you can add that in whenever they go to check out. So that way people can literally get whatever they want. They can select a base tier, and then they can add on to it.
How do you attract sponsors other than family and friends? Assuming the email list is pretty empty. That's a lot of, first time Kickstarter folks doing that as well.
It's not easy. And that is the most difficult part of planning. So like I said, whenever you're thinking about if Kickstarter is right for you, I recommend starting with market research on Kickstarter, and also kind of taking inventory of like what kind of audience you have right now, like how many. And the way that I did that. So I know that you're talking about outside of friends and family, but I'm going to start with how I tackled this with friends and family. So way before I even decided I was going to do Kickstarter, you start talking about your books on social media and to family and friends. Like, don't keep it a secret, start talking about it. And so what I did was, from my very first time announcing that I was creating a kid's book, anytime somebody like left a comment or showed any interest in my book, I wrote down all of those names in a list, every single one. And so that gave me a place to reflect, okay, where do I stand? And of course, you can't count on every single one of those people to actually come, but it helps you to kind of get an idea. So I'm like, okay, I have this many people who have said they're interested in it. And then once I decided I was doing a Kickstarter, I would reach out to those people individually. And that is, I know we don't all have time for that. That is what worked best for me. And I've had at least one other author say that she knows that's what helped her reach her goal so fast, was that she made that one-on-one contact rather than, well, yes, your email list is vital and will help you so much. That one-on-one contact, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested in joining? Like, are you still considering buying? Would you be interested in joining, if they're not already on the mailing list, joining the mailing list and being notified when we launch? And then people actually respond back to you. So you get a confirmation like, yes, I am still interested. With my first book, I added them to my main mailing list. My second book, I actually did something a little bit different where I created a specific landing page that I sent to people, like had a place where they could join a specific landing page that they were planning on backing the campaign, and also giving an explainer as to what Kickstarter is, how it works, so that people know what we're doing and feel confident and comfortable and safe backing. So that's kind of my tactic and it was also nice because like before my campaign launched, I already, knew that this amount of people were planning on backing, just as the people I had reached out to and knew. And after I did all the one-on-one outreach, I, of course, also blasted this landing page out to my email list, on my social medias, that kind of thing, to A, educate people, let them know what we're doing, and B, give me an idea how many people are actually interested in this that I already know, and they're already interested in this. So that's kind of my tactic with friends and family. And that's difficult enough as it is. But how do you reach beyond that? Especially with my second campaign, the thing that made me nervous was not so much, is anybody going to be interested in this? Am I going to reach my goal? Because I'd already done this once before. I felt like, okay, I can plan this. It will be fine. But I was a little bit uneasy because production costs are so much higher. And how many of the people that backed my first project are going to be like, I did the first one just to help her get her start. I don't really care if I get books or not. I already helped her. I don't need this one. So this is where audience building just takes on another level, is trying to expand your audience beyond your friends and family. So that's a lot of work, and nothing's guaranteed, or it's difficult to count on that. But what I did is pretty early on, I kind of started trying to make connections with people on social media in a lot of the same ways that I'm sure you've already talked about in work group, like making genuine connections, not just like cold calling these people like, hey, I'm creating a book. Are you interested in collabing? But genuine connections. So I tried making those connections with, I don't know, maybe half a dozen pretty big influencers in my genre who were like, yes, we would love to share your project. And also reaching out to different podcasts and media. And so this kind of thing, you do have to start a little bit early, but kind of like give notice that this is when you're thinking this is going to happen, so that they can kind of plan around it as well. So I know I planned like a podcast for my launch day. I had like newspaper coverage, that kind of thing, just trying to, and like even like live events. Like I had a book festival a few weeks before my campaign that I printed postcards, and every time somebody bought one of my first books, I put it in the bag and told them what was happening. And then again, during the campaign, I had another one where I did the same thing. And like with both books, I printed just tons and tons of postcards with the information that I sent out to like my Christmas card list. And then just also whomever, like I give them to my sister, like, hey, can you hand these out to people you know? And just that kind of thing. So yeah, that's my number one tip for Kickstarter is just taking the time to do outreach. There's no replacing it. There are different like levels there that, yeah, you might not have time to do the one-on-one messages to everybody who's ever showed an interest, but you can't get around the fact that outreach is going to be your biggest time sucker on whenever you're planning for a Kickstarter, because you got to get the word out. Kickstarter is not going to do it for you. That's one misconception that people think is that they post it, Kickstarter is going to promote it, and they're just going to come. They won't.
How far in advance did you plan for this?
Yeah. So there's, once again, not really a right or wrong on this. This is kind of comes down to who you are as a person. I know people who can get theirs like at least like designed and created in a couple weeks to a month. But I would highly suggest giving yourself like at least 2 months to really like plan. I did like 4 to 6 months because I just know myself and I don't like to rush. I like to feel like I'm doing everything to the best that I can. And also knowing like how busy your life is, because not only do you have to do that outreach, you also have to craft your message, design your campaign, or hire somebody to do it for you. But no matter what, you still have to craft that message. That's going to be a very powerful asset to you. Create a video. There's just a lot, like I almost forgot between campaign 1 and campaign 2, just how much you actually have to do for these things. It's a lot. And planning reward tiers, which I'll get into here. That's something that you also want to give quite a bit of time. So I see people pull off successful last minute campaigns. Absolutely. But especially if this is your first, I would advise like preferably a couple months, but you can do it in less. And for me, I did it more in like 4 to 6. Like I said, that's just kind of contingent on who you are as a person and how you do things. But for me, that's kind of essentially how long I do.
What do you think about was your approximate denominator? So if you had 239 backers, what was your audience? Was it 5,000 people, or what do you think was the starting point?
So that, honestly, I'm not very good at that. So I probably like on my email list had maybe 500 people. And then like on Instagram, maybe like 2,000, 3,000, no, probably more like 2,000. And then like all my Facebook friends and all my community friends, those numbers are important, but those numbers only take you as far as that audience is engaged. That's why for me, the one-on-one outreach was the only thing that truly gave me confidence moving forward with my first campaign, especially because my first campaign, I didn't utilize that like this landing page functionality that I mentioned where people could like literally signed up here saying that they planned on joining us. And so I could look at this number and get an estimate. The first time, I guess I should have known better. It would have been nice to have something this simple that people could enter in, and I would have it right here, where the first one, I like every person that said, yes, they are interested and that I could like notify them at launch. I just kept that like in like a Word document. But for me, having like this number and like that one-on-one outreach number, while that's a much smaller number than that number I gave you of like 500, 600 mailing list subscribers and Instagram and whatnot, it's a much smaller number. These are the people that I know are engaged. And same goes for like the people leaving comments and whatnot. So I would look at like your engagement numbers more than like your follower count, because it's all about how engaged that audience is. And I will say that the more you can just share your why and like be creative about how you're putting that out there. For me, thankfully, I have a pretty engaged audience. There is something to be said for like just like repeatedly pushing that this is going to be happening. This is going to be happening. But I'm a little shy about that. If I see something too much, I almost start to like zone it out, especially like if we're talking, like I've been seeing them talking about this for like 4 months. This is really bad advice. So like, but this is just me, my perspective that I think this about myself. I just think if I did that, people would get sick of looking at me. So it makes me get creative about how I put stuff out there and just try to think of like unique ways to tell your story and why it's important to you and just see who's responding, see how many people are responding. It's hard to quantify, but the engagement is more what I focused on than the actual denominator of my follower count and subscribers, if that helps.
Someone was asking about, can you fulfill with print on demand, quality books, or just order from Amazon? And I would say, yes, you can. But if you're ordering hardcovers for about the same price as what you'll pay on Ingram Spark, you can get something from a digital printer for about the same money and a much better quality. So I would, if you've got 200 orders, then order 200 of them and maybe some extra for yourself so that you can have some using some of the Kickstarter money. And that doesn't mean you still can't do print on demand when you launch on Amazon.
In fact, I recommend it. That's something like whenever we put together a subgroup, there's a lot of like question. I know for me, like whenever you finish a Blitz marketing campaign, it's like, now what do I do? And you've just pushed so much to this 30-day thing for your business. And then it's done. And it's like, have I exhausted everything already? You have not exhausted everything already. So it's kind of like reframing and figuring out how to propel energy toward where you go next, including Amazon. So for me personally, like I wouldn't recommend like for like your main book fulfilling through like doing a print on demand and fulfilling. I just don't think it would be worth the effort. But like our coloring books that we've used that we're using as rewards, those are just from KDP print on demand. I just, pay the $2 each or so. And then I have a nice like bonus reward for people. So, there are ways to utilize it, but for your main book, it wouldn't be where I wouldn't think it would be worth it personally.
You want it to be a really beautiful quality, something better than people will be able to get otherwise, or at least as good, plus some bonus stuff, which is kind of cool.
Exactly.
What's the approximate cost to have somebody design the Kickstarter for you?
So it's going to be different for everybody. So I do some of this for authors. So there's different levels how far you want to take this, that a lot of the time, like whenever I design for people, we'll make like these banners here, maybe a few mock-ups of all the rewards and also like reward tier list. And some people want more, some people want less. For that kind of thing, I personally would do it on an hourly. I could see it costing anywhere from $150 to $500, which is kind of maybe even more depending on how far you want to take it. That's a big jump, I know, but it's just depends on how many graphics you want. So it's a little bit difficult to estimate, but myself, I would usually find it falling in that probably $200 to $250 range.
Normally what we'll do is we'll do this kind of a challenge over a period of time where we'll have 4 or 5 sessions, maybe 6 sessions that, week 1, we talk about video and what you need to put in your video. And week 2, we start filling out the campaign together. Then we do budgeting in another session. So you get some hands-on sessions that are really designed to help you move from where you are now to a finished Kickstarter campaign that can kick off whenever you're ready.
Yes. And it's, fun to give feedback as people go and just hopefully help people feel as prepared as possible. Yeah, it's not as scary as it sounds. It's really overwhelming, especially the first time. But if you plan well, and ultimately, if you can just kind of figure out if it's right for you or not right for you, then you can go into it and have a pretty good idea if you can make it happen, hopefully. So hopefully in the subgroup, we'll be able to dig in a little bit deeper and help people.
When you started a few years ago, would you have thought just, a few short years, you would have raised over $40,000 for books?
Not a chance. that's whenever my friend who I met here, like she reached her goal of like $4,000 in one day. And I was like, whoa. Like, but I also had like totally underestimated about how much books cost to create. Like, so worth it. And I'm so glad I started. But yeah, when I met April, I just was like, I'm just going to go through the motions and see what happens. And before I know it, there's thousands of books and plushies in my basement. So it's so worth it. So yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for letting me.
Thank you, Sarah.
This is one of the subjects I'm most passionate on for authors. So thanks for letting me take my heart on it. And I'm so happy to help any way I can.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you.